Hey everyone, Carrie Beck here with Homeschool Coffee Break, where we help you stop the overwhelm so that you can actually, oh, look at this, you can actually take a coffee break. I actually have coffee with me right here today. It is decaf because we're recording in the middle of the afternoon. But today we're talking about a topic I actually really enjoy, and that's art and music. Justina from Just Classical is here, and y'all are going to be so blessed by what she has to say. So thank you, Justina, for being with us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
We are going to be talking about teaching art and music, and a lot of y'all are like, we just don't get around to that. And I'm like, yeah, well, maybe not, but there are so many benefits, and I'm not going to ramble through it all, but there are so many benefits to teaching art and music. And some of your kids, okay, I am going to digress for just a minute. I was reading a book, and his elementary teacher said he needs to quit drawing pictures of tennis shoes. The man went on to be one of the top designers for Adidas. And I'm like, art can be good and it could propel you. Like, whoever knew a kid drawing tennis shoes? Not that that's all the great art, but still, you need to pursue what your kids are interested in. So I'll be quiet. I want to know a little bit about Justina. We've met, we've known each other for a long time, but could you just tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and about your company, Just Classical?
Yeah, so I'm Justina Thurston. My business is Just Classical, and I also am the host of the Music and Art Homeschool Summit. And I'm a musician. I've been a lifelong musician. I play the oboe, I sing, I play the guitar. I got a degree in music therapy. And I also found that a little hard to market those, so I ended up teaching little kids with a program called Music Garden. And I found a lot more flexibility with that. And I fell in love with teaching little kids and starting them at that age because it is such an important age to start kids in music because they learn the steady beat and the matching of pitch that they need to go on further with their music lessons. And it's just a great time for parents to be with their kids and playing with their kids and doing music together. And so it creates a love for music. So then when I got married and had kids, I have three kids and I've homeschooled them always. I got involved in a program called Classical Conversations. And I liked it because at the early ages, we were memorizing everything to songs or chants. And so music is such a great learning tool and it's such a great mnemonic device. Uh, and so as we were doing that, I also was writing skits for learning about artists and composers, and I ended up turning those skits into YouTube videos and eventually then into unit studies and an overarching course that I call the Composer Detective for the composers and the Artist Detective for the artists. Uh, so I didn't do a lot of art as a child myself because I didn't think I was an artist, but by being in classical conversations, I had to teach drawing. And so I learned right along with the little kids that if you learn to draw step by step, you can learn to draw. And and it was so fun to be involved in the art, in the expression of art because I am creative. I just didn't realize I could draw too, or paint or any of those things. And so I just thought that lots of families maybe feel intimidated by the music and the art. And so I wanted to help families who might not feel like they have the background in it to see that it is possible and that it's really important in our children's education. And so I created Just Classical so I could help basically stop the overwhelm, as you like to say, Carrie, with music and art, because I do think it is so important to integrate it into all the other subjects and to have as part of our lives, not just reading, writing, arithmetic, not just science, technology, engineering, and math. We are creative beings. We are created in God's image. And so we should be involved in these beauty subjects.
That is awesome. And I agree with you so much. I believe in it. I mean, we integrated, if we did, well, my kids did music every day, but like, and we did music appreciation pretty much every day, art appreciation once or twice, but it was always in little bitty snippets. It wasn't like, all right, we're going to sit here for 2 hours and study, Rembrandt or something. So it was like, make it easy. You made a comment, and I wanted to follow up on it. And you talked about using music to memorize, and you were talking about classical conversations. And I just think that is probably one of the best things. I mean, I think of memory verses because we would put memory verses to songs like Row, Row, Row Your Boat. And they would learn it just because of I don't know all the reasons, but I know they learned it. There was a time my kids were like, they were learning the direct object song, and they said, Mom, we just can't get that out of our head. That song keeps going over and over. And I thought, bingo, yay. The
Yeah.
song helped them. And to this day, I know they could still sing it because I think it drove them crazy.
Yeah.
But they will sing it to know what a direct object is. A direct object receives the action from the bird, you know? So thank you for sharing that. I know you have other tips on, let's just stick with music for a few minutes. I'm sure you have some other tips on using music or teaching music. What are things, especially moms that are intimidated? Because I took a music class in college. Somehow I passed my singing with a B because no one wants to sit next to me at church because I change keys on a regular basis. But so I would not want to teach that. But what are some tips, things that you could offer our listeners?
Well, let's go back to the music as a mnemonic device.
Okay.
Um, it it's something you don't even have to go find songs. You could make up your own songs, and maybe you
Mhm.
feel intimidated with that, but you can even chant it. Just give it a rhythm. You know, even for multiplication, 5 times 1 equals 5. Five
Yeah.
times 2 equals 10. Now, that might get a little rote. I actually have to say, I just created all these songs for multiplication to help people memorize them. And
Oh,
so the tunes do change, so it's not quite so rote. But I'm saying you can memorize things just by adding rhythm to them. It doesn't even have to be a song, but like you said, also just a nursery rhyme song you're already familiar with, if you can kind of fit the words. That can be a little tricky at times, but it works, right? And then the other thing you said was studying music in snippets. Like you didn't plan on spending an hour or two every day listening to music, but it sounds like you expose your kids in just small things. And so if you're going to introduce your kids to, say, classical music, I strongly encourage classical music because there's so much beauty in it. There's so much richness and depth. Um, but you can study any genre, any composer, and start with small songs, though, short songs, right? Fun songs. There's plenty of classical songs that are super short and super fun and are going to catch your kids' attention. And then for that, you probably want to move to it or do some kind of steady beat. So I wanted to kind of address the topics you already brought up, but I'll say with little children, what you'd want to do is, first of all, you want to start super young as you possibly can, because they are need to internalize that steady beat and that sense of pitch. Um, to help them further on. And internalizing a steady beat is not just to help you with music, it's to help you learn to sit still, it's to help you learn to focus, it helps you with math, and then ultimately rhythm and music. So all of the activities I do with little kids are steady beat activities or pitch matching activities or movement. So it's real easy, even if you don't have a music background, to turn on a song and just clap along and feel that beat. And maybe you don't think you have a great steady beat, but eventually you'll all catch on, right? And then sing all the time. And eventually your kids are going to begin to match pitch to the songs they're hearing, but they have to be exposed at a really young age. So those are some tips for little ones. It's so easy to march around to the music and move. And that is something you could do as a short activity in between other subjects as well, right? Is just get up and
mhm.
march around to a song. Now you're listening to a great piece of music and your kid is moving, and now you can sit down and focus on something else. Um, for elementary, I would say again, sing all the time. And if you're going to start an instrument, the first instrument I would recommend is piano, because they're going to learn so much. It's going to work both sides of the brain, and They're going to learn to read music. They're going to learn about all the notes. And it's so easy with piano because if you see a C on the page and you hit it on the piano, it's in tune as long as your piano's in tune. Whereas some instruments you have to work with, like violins, you have to figure out where the hand goes and to get the right pitch and that kind of thing. So I recommend starting with piano and then learning the music fundamentals like reading the music, knowing how long a note is, rhythms, that kind of thing. And then usually, some people do start on other instruments at a super young age, like violin, and they become these amazing musicians. So it's not bad to start another instrument at that time. I just recommend piano. But later elementary is a lot of times when you pick up a different instrument, when your hands are big enough to fit something like an oboe, which is what I play, or a flute, or even, a string instrument. And it, like if you play the tuba, you have to be big enough to hold that big instrument, right? So it's a little easier when you're later elementary. But that's when I would say also take some time to learn about composers, and that's the beginning of music appreciation. Um, it doesn't have to be, I mean, you can be learning about composers when they're little too, and basic music appreciation, but they're going to probably get a little more out of it in later elementary and middle school. And then middle school and high school, I would say tips if they've already been doing some music, of course, if they've learned an instrument, if they've picked up especially a band or orchestra instrument, get into ensembles. And if you don't play an instrument, hopefully you've been singing the whole time and you could join a choir. So there's lots of opportunities for social engagement at that age with being in an ensemble or being in musical theater. Um, and then you'd probably also want to start learning a little bit more intricacies of the music, which is called music theory. It's learning more about chord structure and the way pieces are shaped and that kind of thing. So that's higher level, if you wanted to keep going with that. But hopefully that's a few tips and
Oh,
activities
yeah.
for different age levels.
That is, you brought back so many memories. Well, one, I learned the piano. Then my kids, sorry, that was one thing. You're just going to do the piano. Some of them picked up guitar, and tuning a guitar was not real easy for me, even though I know the chords and I can do it, but not me. But um, even my kids in elementary school, when they took piano, we locally had a theory test that came through. I don't know, anyone that had teachers could go down there. And so even in like fourth or fifth grade, they started because they were learning how to read music, but they would go in and take, I don't know, the level one theory test until they passed it. So just you saying that, I was like, oh yeah. And then one more thing, I love the idea of move. So I will share a quick little story when I was cleaning the kitchen after breakfast, we'd eat here, and they go get ready for the day, and they each had to take their turn practicing on the piano. But sometimes, I wasn't quite over there whenever it was time to start homeschooling. So we did have cassette tapes. Some of y'all don't know what that is. Go Google what a cassette tape is. But you would put the cassette tape in, and we had some classical music, and they in the living room. They were probably about 6 to 10, 7 to 12, somewhere around there. They would just dance. I didn't tell them what to do, but as they listened to it, they would dance around over there. And so when you said that, I was like, oh, I remember walking in and my kids are all and I don't mean like dance, but moving, either depending on what kind, maybe Tchaikovsky, they were marching or something. I don't know. And I haven't brushed up on my composers lately, so I may have them mixed up, but still, those are great ideas. Let me just ask you with art. I was going to be an art minor and I love art. I actually went to DC on a government trip and went a day early just so I could wander the art gallery. Hunter and I went to the London Gallery of Art. He was the only one that would go with me when he was in high school. So I love art appreciation. I don't do as much art, but again, you said you didn't feel artsy, but then you had to teach your kids art. Do you have any tips on that?
For drawing, yeah, I mean, it's just you got to break it down, and imitating other artists and their works is a great place to start. I think when I was in elementary school, because I went to public school, I'm in that age group where I don't think there was anybody homeschooling. So they're like, okay, draw a picture of something you see. And maybe that works for some people, but I don't know that it actually does work for everybody or most people, I would even say. And so when you take a piece of artwork that somebody else has already created and then you can see the lines and the shapes, that's an easier way to start. But even easier is if you can find an artist to imitate who's showing you, okay, now you're going to draw this curve, now you're going to draw this line. And so there's different shapes of art. They call it oils, like circles and lines, straight lines, dots, curved lines, and angled lines, actually. So if you know, okay, you're going to make an angled line here, now you're going to make a curved line here, and then you put it all together into the shapes that create the picture and you break it down step by step, that's a lot easier. So if you have a drawn scene before you and you can just say, okay, I'm going to draw that. I see there's a curve there, so I'm going to draw a curved line like that here and imitate it. That's just an easier place to start than trying to bring something even out of your imagination. Say, oh, draw a scene, imagine a scene of a river and a mountain, and sometimes that works for people, but not everybody visualizes in their brain that way either. So imitating a piece of art in front of you is a good place to start.
That
And
is
then for art
excellent.
appreciation,
Yeah.
looking at artists' works, and I know there's a whole thing called a picture study where you spend time just looking at one piece of art and by one artist, and you talk about what you observe, and then you turn it over and see if you can remember the details you observed, and maybe turn it back over
Yeah.
and look at it again, and just keep it up in your house anywhere that you would see it often, so that you begin to appreciate what is in that piece of art and you become familiar with it. And then maybe even dive into who the artist is, what kind of materials did they use to make this artwork. So that's kind of the beginning of art appreciation.
I love that. Yeah. And I mean, some of it, both the music and the art is just exposing them as far as the appreciation, the whole world appreciate. You've got to be exposed to it. That's awesome. Well, I know you have a heart for helping moms with music and art in the homeschool world. Because let's be honest, we cannot do everything lots of times, or we do get overwhelmed. So I know you're planning this summit centered mostly on music and art. Can you tell people a little bit about what sort of inspired you to create this summit?
Yeah, so I'm have the Music and Art Homeschool Summit coming up here real shortly. It's March 12th through 14th, and that's a Wednesday through a Friday. And so we have a full music day with music interviews of those who are music educators or who have been influenced by music in their lives. And we have a whole day of art on Thursday, March 13th, and those will be art educators and um, also people who've been inspired by art. So that's the interviews on that day. And then Friday is a demonstration day, and that's really more for the kids where they get to participate in music or art. And the music and art educators will lead them through some classes, and then you'll get to see how those teachers teach. So parents are encouraged to go to those. They're geared towards the kids, but then you can see, are there music and art educators that fit best with my child's learning style, and would that work for my family? So my inspiration in putting it together is because I think, as I said earlier, there's so much focus on STEM, and you know what? I just need to buy my basic materials to teach my child reading and to do math and maybe even some history and definitely science. But music and art are just electives. And I don't believe music and art are electives. I believe they are essential in our education, and they are part of what make us human. And they are something we are going to enjoy our entire lives. They are something we're going to be able to enjoy when the formal years of learning are over. And so I wanted to encourage moms to see the value of music and art, but also, as we said earlier, so they didn't feel intimidated to add them to their to their homeschools. And I also want them to see the well, I want them to see what I can provide, but also other music and art educators, Because, like I said, that way they can see from those live demonstration classes, oh, this person teaches this way, and my child seems to really be engaging, and that might be a good person to follow. And music and art don't have to be something that moms have to do on their own. There are those of us who love music and art who are out here ready to help you. And so that's why I put it together.
I love that. And you told us so much. I love the music day, the art day, and then basically the demonstration day. My kids would have responded to that really well if we had something and like that. I would have to, like, one of my daughters really liked art, so I actually found a watercolor instructor in around sixth or seventh grade, and she could take those classes. But if we could do something at home, that would just be awesome. This sounds like a terrific summit that can help moms as well. And so we can just put a link, if you'll, Justina, you can just send us a link and we can put everything down there. Let me just ask you, I didn't really ask you this ahead of time. Is there a cost to this?
Oh, it's free. There is
There.
an upgrade, of course, so that you can have ongoing access to the sessions. And the upgrade is also a bundle that has some digital resources that will help you get started in music right away as well. And art, sorry, music and art right away. So it's the Music and Art Homeschool Summit and bundle. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, and if y'all are not sure, you're still thinking, music and art are electives. If we get to it, we get to it. You need to come sign up for this. You just heard Justina say this is totally free. You go in and you got 3 days. And surely most of y'all should be taking a spring break anyway. It's March time. We all need a break since Christmas break. But 3 days that y'all can take a break and start to dive into this and start to see music and art are essential. They are not electives. I totally agree with you, Justina. So thanks for putting this together. Let me just add one thing. If people wanted to just like, besides the summit and the link there, how could people get hold of you?
So they can go to my website. It's www.justclassical. It's JUSCLASSICAL.com. There's no T on the just. So it's just classical, no T. It's just an apostrophe. And there is information about, I'll definitely be having information about the Music and Art Homeschool Summit, but also just about some of the other courses that I teach. And I have lots of articles about music and art, and I've got, right now I have artist biographies on there, just simple ones
Oh,
that kids can really engage with. I'm working on the composer ones still. They can also find my YouTube channel. It's also
okay.
Just Classical is the handle. And so you can see some of the videos that I make of the composers and artists telling their own story. I dress up as the composers and artists and make videos as if they're telling their own story. And so you can find some of my information and mainly those two places, the website and YouTube.
That is awesome. So we will have links to all the places that Justina has mentioned to us today. So as we close, is there anything that you would like to say before we close out?
I would just encourage you to get involved in music and art in some way. And it just adds fun to your child's day. Like we talked about, breaking it up with a little song in between other subjects, maybe. And there's also lots of ways to integrate it into your subjects because it's going to bring so much joy to your lives to be involved in music and art and not just see them as electives, as something, well, we might do that on the side. It can be such a joyful part of your family life. And so hopefully some of the tips that I gave you will help you to make it easier to do it. But yeah, get involved in music and art and you will not regret it, and neither will your children.
That is so true. So, well, Justina, thanks for taking time out of your day and just spending it with us. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This has been a great conversation. Thank you, Carrie.
Oh, yes. Well, I am Carrie Beck, Homeschool Coffee Break. We will talk to y'all next time.